Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It is live from our studio here at Desanwe Kanda in Accra. Coming up this evening, Walid Regragui, Haviere Reinar, Kwesi Appiah and Tom Sein Fit lead the pack of names to replace sacked Blackstars coach Otto Addo. We have the inside story as to the direction the GFA is looking at in saving face following the removal of the current coach of the Blackstars with just about 3 months to the Global Mundial, which is the World Cup. We'll delve into this particular subject in a moment. Also in the bulletin, Public Accounts Committee refers a former Director of Procurement at the Defense Ministry to the Attorney General for prosecution over alleged use of falsified documents in the procurement of 6 vehicles intended for the 2024 election monitoring, which were not delivered. We'll bring you that as well. And before we go, in the package as well, details are emerging on how the Akufo Addo administration spent some 21 million Ghana cedis on the renovation of the Blackstar Square for the 2024 Independence Day celebration, but the event was held in the Eastern region. Interesting developments coming up for the next 1 hour. We have business and sports at the tail end of the show. But before that, let's bring you the news summaries.
Thank you very much, Martin. In our summaries this evening, gospel musician Sonny Badu has suggested that Otto Addo may not be the best fit to lead Ghana's senior national team, despite acknowledging some improvement in recent performances. Reacting after the Black Stars' latest match against Germany, Badu said while he has regained some confidence in Otto Addo, the role of managing the senior national team may be too demanding for him. He proposed that Otto Addo should rather be given a job to handle one of Ghana's junior national teams. Away from that, President John Dramani Mahama has today assented to 5 bills passed by Parliament. They include 3 amendment bills in a move expected to reshape aspects of Ghana's security architecture, education sector, financial regulation. Now, the bills were signed into law earlier today. Acting chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, Samuel Atamils, has called for the prosecution of a former Director of Procurement at the Defense Ministry, Frank Oliver, over the alleged use of falsified documents in the procurement of 6 vehicles intended for monitoring the 2024 general elections. It follows a demand by the Majority Chief Whip, Roxanne Nelson Dapempo, for the immediate interdiction of the same person. Finally, the Minister for Roads and Highways governs Kwesi Appiah has directed contractors working on new road construction projects to collaborate closely with the Ghana Highways Authority to ensure that all designs are compatible with the country's planned electronic tolling system. The directive was issued during an on-site inspection of ongoing road projects in Accra, including the expansion works on the Accra-Tema motorway. And all these are on our website, 3news.com. Martin, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let's settle for the details of our stories. And clearly, the big conversation right now on the lips of many football lovers is the fact that Ghana's coach, Otto Addo, has been giving the sack. And following that, a lot of names are already being discussed as to who the probable replacement would be. And if you haven't heard, Ghana is without a coach for its national team, some 73 days to the start of the World Cup. That's after Otto Addo was booted out for poor performance, but the race to replace him to ensure the country returns to its place in football on the African continent and the global stage has only started. Walid Regragui, former Moroccan coach Haviere Reinar, and former Black Stars and current Sudan coach Kwesi Appiah are top on the names gunning for that position. But away for the search for a replacement has been growing skepticism over the management of the Black Stars and other national teams. In studio with me now is Bill Ishen, who has been following very closely what this means going forward. He's with the 3 Sports team, and he's joined us in studio for a quick chat on this. Thank you, Bill. So, first of all, what exactly was the reason the GFA gave for this decision? Is it because of poor performance? Of course, that's a major issue, but was that the only reason they gave?
Yeah, it was based on poor performances. If you look at the the numbers of Otto Addo, especially in the second stint, it wasn't good at all. In 22 matches, he recorded 8 victories, 9 losses, and 5 draws. More losses than actual wins, which is not encouraging for a coach leading a team as big as the Black Stars. And so what I understand from some conversations that we had was the decision was actually made after the game against Austria, but they were just biding time and wait for what happens against Germany, and then they would actually make the decision known to Otto. So after the game against Austria, in fact, the sports minister flew all the way to Germany also, and I believe it was for that particular purpose, to ensure that that decision was made known to the head coach, and now we are at this particular point going into the World Cup.
And so, who are the probable replacements? We've heard some names known, some not too known, but of course people in the sporting fraternity would have had an idea who these names are. But talk to us, what are the names coming up? What could they possibly bring?
Yeah, in the past few hours, a number of names have come up. In the first hours after Otto was sacked, the main name was Kwesi Appiah. Kwesi Appiah, of course, is current coach of the Sudanese national team. He did coach the Black Stars for 2 different stints, one in the 2014 World Cup, the other in the 2019 AFCON. The problem with that is Kurt Okreku's administration did not continue with him the moment Kurt started as the president of the GFA. At the time, Kwesi Appiah had finished the AFCON and his contract ended in December. He did not extend it and decided to appoint CK Akono instead. And so it would be quite tricky for him to go back to the man that he decided not to continue with and choose a different person over. Other names include Tom Sein Fit, who used to be with Mali and famously took Gambia to around the quarterfinals of the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations. He literally threw himself at the Black Stars last year and is definitely one to look out for. There are also some names like Walid Regragui, who took Morocco to the 2022 World Cup semis, and also, per CAF appeals board, since Morocco are champions, he is a champion of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. And so these are the kind of names coming in. Haviere Reinar is also a name in there. He's won 2 AFCONs. He managed Saudi Arabia. What we are hearing is that he is parting ways with Saudi Arabia immediately, and today's game with Saudi Arabia is his final game as the head coach. So he's definitely one also in the market.
And based on the credentials of these gentlemen you've mentioned, like I indicated, maybe Tom Sein Fit, not many will know him, but at least we know the likes of Kwesi Appiah, Haviere Reinar, Walid. Most recently, we know that we saw his exploits at the World Cup. So we have an idea what he's been able to do with the Moroccan team. What would the Black Stars be looking at? We have about 3 months to the World Cup. So what kind of coach do we want? One that will build the team, or one that will pick what we have and try to do something with it? Then after probably the World Cup, we can start looking at a proper rebuild.
I'm thinking that what I reckon is the GFA will be looking at an interim coach, one that can at least take the Black Stars to this coming World Cup. And that would mean that the big names that you are seeing on social media would not be those names that would eventually get that interim role. Because Haviere Reinar, I doubt, would want an interim role. Walid Regragui, with the kind of pedigree he has, I doubt wants an interim role either. Tom Sein Fit would not want an interim role. He would want a permanent role. So looking at the options around, I reckon that they might stick to Desmond Ofer, for example, who is an assistant coach in the Black Stars. And he's been an assistant since the beginning of 2025. So he's been around for about a year. So we might see him on an interim basis until after the World Cup is done. Then we'll possibly look at some of the big names to take the team forward on a longer term basis. But for now, I would be surprised if any of these big names pick the job right now. I don't think any of them would want to risk it right now, especially with the kind of chaos that is ongoing. Of course, after the World Cup, a lot of things will settle. They would have time to build. And so what I reckon is maybe a Desmond Offer or even the technical advisor, Winfred Schaefer, could take over on an interim basis until after the World Cup.
Until after the World Cup?
Yeah.
So whoever we are like, so these names that are being bandied about, none of them.
I don't think they will come in immediately, or whoever the GFA settles on will come in immediately. I reckon an announcement will probably be made on a Desmond Offer or a Winfred Schaefer as coach on an interim basis until after the World Cup. Then we could possibly see, some of these big names. But these big names will not come cheap. Haviere Reinar will be very costly. He will take you through his records and he would quote a very huge figure. Yeah. And of course, he has the right to quote a huge figure. Walid Regragui too, same. He will quote a huge figure. There's another name that I saw coming up on social media just a few hours ago, Picho Mosimane. He has coached Al Ahly before. He's one of those top coaches from South Africa also. And he's also not going to come cheap as well. So I don't think that if you'd want a coach right now before the World Cup, it definitely would not be them. It was someone who will be on an interim basis.
All right, Bill, thank you so much for your thoughts on this. And like you indicated, we all have to just watch the space and see what the GFA and the Ministry of Sports will be doing going forward. Thank you very much. So this is still 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition, and we are shifting our attention now to some other issues still relating to big stories making rounds in Ghana. We're going to the floor of Parliament because a ranking member on the Public Accounts Committee, Samuel Atta Mills, has referred a former Director of Procurement at the Defense Ministry to the Attorney General for prosecution over the alleged use of falsified documents in the procurement of 6 vehicles intended for monitoring the 2024 general elections, which were not delivered. This follows findings by the Auditor General, which rejected store receipts vouchers valued at 4.8 million cedis in a special audit of government commitments and payables, citing that the vehicles in question had not been supplied. Appearing before the Public Accounts Committee, the former Procurement Director, Frank Oliver Kodo, explained that the vehicles had initially been delivered but were later taken away from the ministry's custody due to concerns that payment might not be effected. He indicated that he subsequently advised management to extend the contract agreement. His explanation, however, raised serious concerns among members of the committee. Here is Frank Oliver Kodo, who is a former Director of Procurement at the Defense Ministry, when he appeared before the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament.
The supplier came heavily on us that he had information that they were not going to pay for the vehicles, and so demanded to take the vehicles away. So we considered the issue that to release the vehicles to the supplier and then bound him to keep them for us by extending the contract. Because at the time...
With whose authority did you do this?
Well, it was an advice I gave to management.
You,
since, yes,
in your capacity as...
No, it was advice I gave that this is the request from the supplier.
A whole military institution. In your capacity as... What's your role, please?
I was the Director for Procurement.
Director for Procurement?
Yes.
And you gave such a directive. When you don't you have lawyers? Don't you have a chief director at the ministry? And in the chain of command, I know for the military they don't joke with that. And so you sit in your office, take a decision that is binding on the whole Ministry of Defense.
Mr. Chair, it was an advice I give to management that under the circumstance, if the vehicles are kept and we are not able to pay for them, it may lead to judgment debt for us. But it's an option that we can explore. That is, we extend the validity of the contract so that the supplier will keep the vehicles for us at such a time that the ministry has the money to pay.
And so you heard Frank Oliver Akpodo, who is the former Director of Procurement at the Defense Ministry. Now let's listen to the Majority Chief Whip Roxy Nelson Dapamepo calling for his immediate interdiction also at the same event.
Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, I think you should be interdicted for how you carried out your function as Minister of Defense. We demand that, or you are not responding to the issues reasonably. What is your relationship with Global Supply Network?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any relationship.
Because you see, Mr. Chair, I am struggling to appreciate the fact that a ministry signs a supply and purchase agreement. You are not the ministry. You are not even the chief director. You are not the Minister of Defense. And you are telling the Committee of Parliament that the supplier was putting pressure on you by sending you text messages. So you see, this is how you people personalize public transactions. You personalize the transaction, so it became your personal burden. How many were the vehicles? In fact, if you can't tell us where the vehicles are, at least tell us how many they were.
Mr. Chairman, there were 6 vehicles.
Sorry?
6 vehicles, sir.
16.
6. 6. Yeah, 6.
And till date, Madam Chair, till date, we don't know where the vehicles are. So for me, my demand is that the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources should interdict this man. It should be interdicted.
And so that is the Majority Chief Whip Roxy Nelson Dapamepo calling for the immediate interdiction of Frank Oliver Akpodo, who is a former Director of Procurement at the Defense Ministry. Now, the ranking member on the Public Accounts Committee has also called for the prosecution of the man in question. In fact, Samuel Atta-Mills is a co-chair of the committee, and he's also been speaking at that event.
Oh, he has to prove that he got permission from that guy. Yes, but that's hearsay. But just to let you know, I'll have a special report to the Attorney General for your prosecution.
So you could tell that there was a consensus, more or less, from the leadership of the Public Accounts Committee on what action should be taken regarding the former Director of Procurement at the Defense Ministry. And clearly, it looks as though what has been said is what will stand, where he has already been referred to the Attorney General to investigate further and get to the bottom of it. Well, we'll see what the coming days hold, especially for the man in question, and how much of that particular amount will be retrieved by the state. That is, if it is still within his grasp or within, his reach, and whether the accounts committee will be able to get him to pay for all of that. You're still listening to 3FM 92.7. This is Hot Edition. Stay with us. When we return, we'll be getting some perspectives on this and also find out whether or not the civil society organization's position on this is anything that could influence the final decision of the Public Accounts Committee. Stay with us. Right, so we are going to the phone lines now to engage Dr. John Kwapong. Now, Ghana continues to grapple with issues of procurement and procurement-related irregularities, with the latest concern emerging from the Public Accounts Committee sitting over alleged falsification of documents at the Defense Ministry. Dr. John Osai Kwapong has joined us. He is a fellow at CDD Ghana. Doc, good evening, and thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening to you, and thank you for having me.
The big concern about procurement, any and every time issues of accountability comes up, procurement is almost part of that general conversation. Talk to us about what your assessment will be. How deeply rooted is this concern of procurement when it comes to the public sector?
Thank you very much. It is very worrying. It is very concerning, especially because if you look at the Auditor General's report, year in, year out, the infractions are the same. I mean, if you take a look at this over several number of years, you would notice that the infractions are essentially the same. What is becoming more alarming, in my opinion, is the cost of those infractions. And it baffles me that we have procurement systems, practices, processes in place. And so I'm still not sure why these breaches and these infractions continue to happen year after year.
Right, and so you give the impression that this is not the first time we are hearing about this kind of major issue when we are talking about corruption. Do you think over the years we've been able to take concrete steps to either stem it or reduce its impact on our public dealings?
Even if we've taken measures, some way, somehow, given how it continues to occur, given how we continue to see these infractions, then it suggests to me that whatever measures we have in place, some way, somehow, it's not working. But I'm also not sure what additional measures we do need anymore, because anytime the government, any government, right, or a public agency even spends a penny of our money, it has to go through a process, right? When the state is procuring a good or a service, you just don't wake up and say, I want this, and then it comes to you. No, there are processes it goes through. There are people whose hands these processes go through, who have to review, verify, sign, approve, and all of that. And so you ask yourself, what is still missing in all of these checkpoints we've built in the administrative process when we are procuring goods and services? In my opinion, the focus for me now should not be on the rules and the processes and the procedures in place, because we have them. Our focus now should be on the people who some way, somehow, either allow or fail to detect these things when they are happening. Because that is, for me, the last line of accountability.
Do you get the sense that there are levels of intentionality or there are deliberate acts, that undergird some of these? Because, like you said, like the people in charge either deliberately decide not to do due diligence by going through the right documentation, or are unable to, go through the documentation properly. So how do you read this, whether or not people, because there's a public sector, all play, or everybody can get their way?
Yeah. Yes, because you start asking yourself that, is this a human challenge we are facing and not an institutional or rules and procedures in place problem we are facing? And lately, I'm erring on the side of it is the human element in our administrative processes that is creating these things. Because again, somebody has to sign up on these transactions. Somebody has to review it. Somebody has to approve it. So these persons who are approving, reviewing, what are they seeing or not seeing? And what is it that these transactions, what is it about these transactions that can pass whatever review test they subject or do not subject it to? And so for me, our focus now should really be on the persons who allow these transactions to go through. Because I honestly do not believe that the problem we have now is lack of proper rules and administrative processes in place. I am starting to realize that there is a human element that is driving these infractions, whether intentional or unintentional. It is a human thing that we are now dealing with.
Right. And Doc, just indulge me, two final questions that you can take leave of us. There are state institutions that have over the years been trying to fight these kinds of procurement fraud. Systems have been put in place, like you alluded to earlier, to reduce or do away with these kinds of temptations, if we can call it that, for which reason we keep talking about procurement fraud. Have these institutions been effective, and how can we improve upon them?
I believe these institutions have been trying their best, especially if you look at the Auditor General, for example. That institution, year in and year out, helps us to catch all of these infractions. It is up to somebody else then to take a look at these infractions and hold persons accountable for them. And so for me, where I believe we are falling short is imposing the kinds of sanctions on persons or even agencies where infractions occur. That for me would become deterrents for others. If we really start punishing people and agencies for these kinds of infractions, I'm hopeful that it would serve as a strong deterrent for other agencies. So I'm thinking of a scenario like, okay, we found out that agency A, all of these infractions happened. It ended up costing the state 20 million cedis. Well, your penalty for that, for not exercising proper oversight over the use of public money, is that in your next fiscal year, maybe you get to lose a portion of it as a penalty. Those kinds of penalties, if you're going to apply them and apply them strictly, I'm hoping that it becomes a deterrent, and for people to stop engaging in these things, for agencies to just keep coming to park year in and year out just to explain what happened, why it occurred, and then you move away and end of story. If that's the only thing that is going to happen, you come to park, you explain, and you go, then what is the incentive for agencies and the people who work in there to change behavior and do differently?
That's a good question you ask. And maybe my last question would be, if the people have the money, yesterday, for instance, at the same public procurement, the public accounts committee sitting, we're told that one company that had also been found guilty, more or less, agreed to pay some 19 million Ghana cedis. So the question then is, if individuals or institutions that are found to have misappropriated public funds still do have the funds, should we not be looking more at getting those funds back rather than maybe prosecuting them and jailing them, if that's the final alternative?
Yes, recovery is very important. So, like you said, if someone realizes that, hey, I shouldn't have done that as part of the procurement process, I would refund your monies to you. That's For me, that is good. It is necessary, but it is not sufficient. So for me, if you engaged in such a thing in doing procurement with a state, if I would have a rule in place that even disqualifies you from the procurement process for maybe a year or two, right? So that the next time, an entity is being engaged by the state to provide some goods and services, they would be mindful of engaging in anything that would result in infractions of the process, because they know that if I do this, the penalty I can suffer is, for example, suspension from participating in any public procurement for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. Those kinds of penalties, if you implement and enforce them, I'm hoping can bring some sanity. Because when you listen to these PAC hearings and when you read the Auditor General's report, it's quite heartbreaking to see the monies involved. Monies that can go to address, you name it all, challenges in education infrastructure or even health infrastructure. Those leakages is, a bed not available, a school where kids have to continue studying under trees. That is why we really have to start tackling this thing very head on.
Doc, thank you so much for speaking to us this evening.
My pleasure.
And that is Dr. John Osai Kwapong, who is a fellow at CDD, Center for Democratic Development, Ghana. And he's been sharing his thoughts on this big albatross that seems to hang around the neck of many public servants, which is the procurement fraud. So today at the Public Accounts Committee hearing, it looks as though the former head of procurement with the Ministry of Defense is being, asked to go, or the Attorney General has been asked to start investigating the gentleman in question, Frank Oliver Kodo, for his involvement in some infractions, which is said to have cost the state some 4.8 million Ghana cedis. What are your thoughts on this development? Do send them to us on our various social media platforms. We are streaming on Facebook and on YouTube. Just look for 3FM 92.7 and you can be a part of the national conversation. Stay with us. When we return, we'll take you to that all-important conversation where the Office of Government Machinery has disclosed that some 21 million Ghana cedis was paid to contractors for the renovation of the Blackstar Square ahead of Ghana's 67th Independence Day celebration. But the event was held somewhere else. So what was the decision that went into it? Stay with us. We'll be back with more.
Accra, it's time! Celebrate Easter with Kitia and enjoy 25% off store-wide and up to 50% off select.
This is 92.73 FM. You're listening to Hot Edition. I am Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Let's turn our attention to some other stories this evening. The Office of Government Machinery has disclosed that 21 million Ghana cedis was paid to contractors to renovate the Blackstar Square, or what many of you would know as the Independence Square. And that was ahead of the 67th Independence Day celebration in 2024. Despite that payment, the event was eventually held in the Eastern region, not at the supposed prepared place. Appearing before the Public Accounts Committee, the Chief Director of the Office of Government Machinery, Dr. Abubakar Wayo, explained that the change in venue was based on an executive decision taken after the contract had already been awarded. According to him, although the Independence Day celebration was relocated, the renovation works at the Blackstar Square became necessary to prepare the facility for the presidential inauguration. It follows a question posed by a member of the committee, Edem Agbana. Let's listen to the Chief Director of the Office of Government Machinery, Dr. Abubakar Wayo, and Deputy Chief of Staff, Nana Oyebampo Addo, when they appeared before the Public Accounts Committee earlier today.
Of the Blackstar Square for the 67th Independence Celebration and other national events. I may be wrong, but if I recall correctly, 67th anniversary should be 2024. And that celebration took place at Koforidua, one of the resource centers. And so how do you renovate a place in Accra and the celebration takes place in a different region? I would want some clarification on that, please.
Honorable Chair, thank you. It's true. That was the contract name for, and it was meant for the 67th independence. But later, there was change in the program. And it helped all of us because during the 7th January, we didn't need money to renovate that same venue. Yes, the 7th independence anniversary was moved to Koforidua. That's where it took place, after the award of the contract. So certainly it's true. What you are saying is very true. But, Honorable Chair, it helped the country because for over 5-6 years, no independent anniversary took place there. And it meant that for the 7th January 2025 ceremony, we would have needed money to renovate the place. Though the first target was the independence, but later it was changed. And I don't think around this table we have the opportunity to say because the contract is saying that we should renovate Blackstar Square for 67th independence. What it means is that by all means it should take place there. We also had higher authority. When they say move, we are moving. Sit, we are sitting. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I... Okay.
But sir, I mean, the law knows no higher authority. And you requested for money for a specific purpose, renovating a venue for an anniversary. Now you are saying that higher authority, and per what laws did you receive those orders from the higher authority that you acted on it and had to use the money to prepare the venue for the January 7th, 2025 instead of 6 March? We want to know.
Yes, so, Honorable Chair, it was a decision taken by the presidency at that time. So the contract had been awarded, works being executed, and then subsequent to that, the presidency at that time took an executive decision to relocate the commemoration to the Eastern region. I think it was a decision that was taken at the political level, and that is why this occurred. So by that time, the contract had already been awarded and executed. It was a decision taken by the then presidency.
So that is the voice of Nana Oye Bampo, who is the Deputy Chief of Staff. You also heard the voice of Dr. Abubakar Wayo, who is the Chief Director at the Office of Government Machinery. They were both answering questions from the Public Accounts Committee. Well, let's speak to Christian Yali now, who is a parliamentary correspondent, joining us for a quick update on how the committee sitting has gone today. Christian, thank you for your time. Is the committee still sitting? What other major issues have come up?
Martin, as I speak, the committee has ended the public hearing for today. So it is expected that tomorrow a number of institutions, including the District Assembly Common Fund, the administrator, will be here, as well as the National Service Authority. And when you talk about the National Service Authority, there are a lot of teething issues that are coming from there. And so the committee has ended for today. They ended with the officials from the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. One of the major conversations surrounding that was some allocations made for some other fund, which they termed the Gates Health Fund, which was set up to look at the Agenda 111 hospitals. In fact, one of the major issues raised by some of the committee members was why the chief of staff at the time had to make some directives to give Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund before they could go ahead to make certain payments for some of the contractors under the Agenda 111 project. The ranking on the committee, Samuel Mills, was of the view that that was too much of bureaucracy, and he felt something better could have been done. Also because other concerns were that GIF ordinarily shouldn't have been the one taking charge of the Agenda 111 hospitals when there are other institutions like the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health. So that was where the public hearing for today ended. But we know that beyond what came up concerning the Blackstar Square renovation and the independence celebrations, earlier in the day, we had the two agencies that look at security and intelligence in the country, i.e., we had the Ministry of the Interior, led by the Minister himself, Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak, who came before the committee. One of the issues was about some, bungalows and class bungalows for police officers across the country, and then some uncompleted buildings of that nature as well. Some that are dating back to 10 years, 20 years, 2-3 decades ago that have not been completed. And he said that the IGP, the current IGP, together with the Police Management Board, are putting together data on all of these, pending buildings across the country to look at the various stages of completion, and then which ones need to be given priority will be given the priority. But one thing he emphasized was that they are looking at public-private partnerships, PPP arrangements, to ensure that there are more infrastructure to cater for the deficits that are there right now. Thereafter, we had the Defense Ministry also come to answer some questions, and what stood out for me and for the committee members themselves was about the procurement of some 6 vehicles to monitor the 2024 elections. What came out was that some 4.8 million Ghana cedis, Martin, was paid to a contractor to deliver 6 vehicles to the Defense Ministry for patrol services during the 2024 elections. Now, the Auditor General in the special report found that after that payment was made, the said vehicles, all 6 of them, were not delivered. And so the former procurement director, Frank Podo, who is now heading finance at the Lands Ministry, was questioned over that, why they made a payment 4.8 million cedis and none of the 6 vehicles was delivered. And so in the long run, he was referred to the Attorney General for prosecution, and also because he is currently holding a position at the Lands Ministry, he was asked to be interdicted until further notice. So these are some of the major issues that took center stage during the hearing today, Martin.
Right, and you say the sitting resumes tomorrow?
Exactly, and as expected, there are more and more ministries, departments, and agencies that are expected to appear. One that already for journalists like myself are looking forward to will be that of the National Service Authority and also the District Assembly Common Fund Administrator, because then over and over again, MPs raise questions and issues about the allocations. Now we know that the DACF, as it's popularly known, has been uncapped. Today, like this, there was a conversation about how the funds from DACF could be channeled into the construction of, police stations across the country, so that there will be more visibility, security visibility. So those are some of the issues, and already there have been some MPs also talking about a raise in the allocations or the percentages that are given to members of parliament. But this report is looking at some areas, some that have been validated, some that are not validated from 2024. So we'll look at some of the nitty-gritties of some of those concerns, and then we'll look at payment irregularities under the National Service Authority itself, which has resulted in the ongoing, legal issues surrounding some of the former directors like Gifty Oware and Osei Sibientri and the rest of them. So it portends to be an interesting one from tomorrow, indeed.
Certainly so. Thank you very much. Christian Yali is our parliamentary correspondent, updating us on developments in Parliament and then also expectations ahead of tomorrow's Public Accounts Committee sitting. You're still listening to 3FM 92.7 is the dial. This is Hot Edition live from our studio here at Adesanwe Kanda in Accra. Still to come, President John Dramani Mahama has signed 5 new bills into law. We'll tell you the specifics of this bill when we return from this break. Stay with us.
Accra.
.7 is the dial. This is 3FM. You're listening to Hot Edition. We are swinging to the office of the President. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has signed 5 new bills into law, introducing changes across Ghana's security, education, and financial sectors. The most significant is the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act 2026, which abolishes the Office of the Minister for National Security. Under the new law, the President will now assign oversight of security agencies to any minister of his choosing. The act also changes the name of the National Intelligence Bureau back to the Bureau of National Intelligence, the BNI. In education, the President has assented to the University of Engineering and Agricultural Science Act 2026, establishing a new public university. It will operate 3 campuses at Bonsu in the eastern region, as well as Uhun and Ochirinsua in the Ahafo region. Here is President John Mahama moments after signing the bill.
So I've signed 5 bills into law. The first one is the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act 2026. What it does is it removes the Office of Minister of National Security and frees the President's hand to appoint any minister to supervise the security agencies. It also reverts the name of NIB, National Intelligence Bureau, to Bureau of National Intelligence. And so it becomes BNI again, so that it sorts out the confusion between that security agency and a very well-known Ghanaian commercial bank. That's it. Then this, the University of Engineering and Agricultural Sciences Act 2026. It sets up another university in the eastern region at Bonsu with 2 campuses, 3 campuses, a main campus at Bonsu, second campus at Ohau, and the 3rd campus at Achirensua in the Ahafo region. Then this is the amendment to the Growth and Sustainability Levy Act. As you are aware, the act was amended to increase it from 1% to 3%. And so this act reduces it again. That is the levy on mining companies. It reduces it again to 1% because of the introduction of the sliding scale for royalties. And this is the Ghana Education Regulatory Bodies Amendment Act. It amends the act to take away the obligation to charter by universities. And then the final one is the Ghana Deposit Protection Amendment Act. This is an amendment to an original act that is supposed to guarantee deposits of the public that is held in commercial banks or financial institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is President John Dramani Mahama moments after signing some 3 new bills into law. You're still listening to Hot Edition. Time now for the latest in the world of business.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Coming up tonight, some oil marketing companies begin fuel price hikes ahead of April window as NPA's new price floor pushes petrol to 13 cedis 30 pesos and diesel to 17 cedis 10 pesos per litre. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. Some oil marketing companies, OMCs, have begun increasing palm prices ahead of the scheduled April 1, 2026 adjustments under the price deregulation policy. One of the biggest players in the industry, Gol, announced in a social media post that petrol has increased from 12 cedis 24 pesos to 13 cedis 30 pesos per litre, while diesel has risen from 15 cedis 69 pesos to 17 cedis 10 pesos per litre. The company said the increase is influenced by the new price floor announced by the National Petroleum Authority (NPA) on March 30th, 2026, even though the official adjustment window is April 1 to 15, 2026. It remains unclear how the other major OMCs will respond. Some players had argued that prices could have remained lower if not for the strict enforcement of the NPA's price floor. We will be following this development and bring you updates in our subsequent bulletins. Moving on, Standard & Poor's S&P Global Ratings has affirmed Ghana's long and short-term foreign and local currency sovereign credit ratings at B- or B, maintaining a stable outlook. The decision reflects a precarious balance between the country's tangible post-default economic recovery and persistent risks that could still trigger a downward in the next 12 to 18 months. The following three business news test report has the details. S&P Global Ratings has affirmed Ghana's sovereign credit rating, acknowledging the significant strides the country has made in fiscal consolidation and macroeconomic stability since the 2022 debt crisis. However, the agency has delivered a clear warning. The current stable rating is conditional and fragile. S&P identifies three primary downside risks that could destabilize Ghana's credit profile over the next 12 to 18 months. First, any stall in fiscal reform, which could lead to wider budget deficits, threatens the government's ability to refinance maturing debt. Second, the economy remains highly sensitive to global market dynamics. A decline in export volumes or a drop in global prices for key commodities like gold and cocoa could weigh heavily on the balance of payments. Finally, the debt restructuring process, while nearing its end, is not yet risk-free. Potential disputes among credit groups under the G20 Common Framework could still trigger negative rating actions. This assessment arrives at a critical juncture with the $3 billion IMF Extended Credit Facility Program set to expire on May 31, 2026. The responsibility for fiscal discipline shifts entirely to national policy frameworks. While Ghana has introduced new fiscal rules and an independent fiscal council, S&P notes these measures remain untested through electoral cycles. Despite these hurdles, the affirmation highlights a stronger foundation supported by a current account surplus and a cautious return to capital markets. For now, Ghana's economic recovery remains on the right track, provided the momentum holds. And that was a three business news desk report on S&P warning of potential downward pressure on Ghana's credit rating. Now, the Finance Ministry says the country's import cover has risen to 5.8 months of March this year. The ministry says government is on track to meet its target of 8.6 months of import cover.
Ghana's reserves had fallen to about 1.5 months of import cover in 2023, according to the World Bank, raising concerns about the country's ability to sustain imports. But recent data suggests a strong recovery in external buffers. Speaking at the Mervyn Pick Accra Business Forum on behalf of the minister, the Deputy Finance Minister said import cover has increased by around 60% compared to last year.
Gross international reserves has risen to $14.5 billion, equivalent to 5.8 months of import cover as of March this year, up from $13.8 billion at the end of December 2025. It is worth noting that by the end of December 2024, the gross international reserves was approximately $8.9 billion, covering 3.9 months of import cover. So in just over a year, Ghana's reserves have surged by over 60%.
Meanwhile, Cabinet has approved the Ghana Accelerated National Reserve Accumulation Policy aimed at strengthening the country's resilience to external shocks. The Finance Minister says efforts are underway to ensure targets under the program are achieved.
The program is to build an economic war chest to protect the economy against future shocks by raising gross international reserves to the equivalent of 8.6 months of import cover by the end of this year and 15 months of import cover by the end of 2028. This is an economy regaining balance. This is an economy back on its feet, rebuilding strength and preparing to run.
The forum brought together policymakers and business leaders to discuss Ghana's economic outlook and investment climate. Organizers say the platform is intended to drive policy dialogue and support long-term economic stability.
And that brings us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also, for more business stories, please check out our website 3news.com. And that also brings us to the end of Hot Edition. Thanks for your company.